Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rom.
In our top story, Israel has suffered another devastating blow at the United Nations as the world body's anti-Israel bias has spun completely out of control. The General Assembly has voted to commemorate the Palestinian Nakba, or the catastrophe of the creation of the State of Israel. The proposal was sponsored by Egypt, Jordan, Yemen, and Senegal. It passed with 90 in favor to 30 against, with 47 abstentions. Gilad Erdan, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, blasted the decision, calling it a disgrace, saying Palestinian lies must no longer be accepted on the world stage. He said that the resolution to commemorate the Nakba is intended to blame Israel for the conflict while absolving the Palestinians of any responsibility. Erdan reminded the General Assembly that it voted to adopt Resolution 181, the partition plan. The Jewish people accepted this resolution without hesitation, but the Arabs and Palestinians did not. Israel was subsequently attacked by 5 armies, as well as by the Arabs living in Israel, in an attempt to annihilate the Jewish state. Erdan urged the body to stop blindly supporting Palestinian libels in the United Nations.
Terrorists in the Gaza Strip have resumed rocket fire on Israel. After a month of relative calm on the Gaza border, a missile was fired towards Israeli communities in the Jewish state. The projectile landed in an open field and no injuries were reported. Israeli fighter jets were quickly scrambled to carry out retaliatory strikes. They bombed a terror tunnel, a Hamas military post, and the main rocket production facility in the Hamas-run enclave. Terror groups unsuccessfully targeted the Israeli warplanes with anti-aircraft fire and surface-to-air missiles. The IDF warned that it would not tolerate any further escalations.
The Biden administration is working to limit the influence of members of the new Israeli government. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen confirmed that the White House is attempting to limit the inclusion of Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir in the incoming Knesset. These 2 right-wing politicians celebrated a major victory in the last elections, reflecting the Israeli public's desire to increase security and infrastructure in Judea and Samaria. Finding itself at odds with the conservative beliefs of the incoming government, the Biden administration has accused Ben-Gvir and Smotrich of being extremists and has pressured Israel not to assign them to high-profile positions.
Iran has announced that it has tripled its uranium enrichment to 60% purity, which is just a short technical step away from creating weapons-grade uranium for nuclear bombs. This past July, the International Atomic Energy Agency reported that Iran already has enough fissile material for at least 1 nuclear weapon. It now appears that the radical Shiite Muslim country is racing to create more weapons of mass destruction. Israel has taken Iran's threats to destroy the Jewish state seriously and is considering a preemptive strike. The Israeli and United States Air Forces recently held major air drills practicing an attack on the hardline Islamic Republic. The joint exercises simulated long-range flights over the Mediterranean Sea. They involved refueling planes, which would be necessary for an offensive attack on Iran's rogue nuclear program. This is the largest joint exercise of its kind held in recent years. IDF Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Aviv Kohavi, praised the cooperation, saying, "We are operating together on all fronts to gather intelligence, neutralize threats, and prepare for various scenarios in one or multiple arenas."
The United Nations Middle East envoy has publicly sided with a Palestinian terrorist who was killed after stabbing an Israeli police officer and attempting to steal his weapon. Tor Wensland, the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process, sent his heartfelt condolences to the family of the terrorist and said that he was horrified by the death of the Palestinian man. He demanded Israeli accountability and a prompt investigation into what he called the scuffle. Israel's foreign ministry responded saying the UN official statement was a total distortion of reality. It said this incident was a terror attack in which a police officer was stabbed and the life of another officer was threatened. Israel's Defense Minister Benny Gantz condemned Wensland's remarks and the attempts to present the event in a false and manipulative manner.
A Palestinian terror tunnel was discovered under a school operated by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency in Gaza. Israel has repeatedly accused Palestinians in the Hamas-run enclave of hiding weapons around educational facilities, hospitals, and residential buildings, and has requested that UNRWA exercise vigilance in preventing this threat to innocent lives. This is not the first instance of weapons being stored in an UNRWA building. In 2014, during Operation Protective Edge, rockets were found in UNRWA schools on multiple occasions. In 2020, a hand grenade was found at an UNRWA school, and last year, a similar terror tunnel was discovered under an UNRWA facility. Also in 2021, the IDF determined that at least 14 underground missile launch pads were being stored in the courtyard of a school likely run by the aid organization.
The city of El Paso, Texas, and the Nevada Board of Regents have made major moves to protect their Jewish communities by adopting the International Holocaust Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. This working description of Jewish hatred is important because it provides examples of anti-Semitism in order to fight it. The IRA definition is the most widely accepted legal standard for anti-Semitism internationally. Anti-Jewish hatred has been on the rise in America, and more states and institutions have accepted IRA to fight this troubling trend. More than 865 local, state, and national governments and major public entities have accepted the definition, including the U.S. Departments of Education, Justice, and State. Nevada formally adopted the IRA definition in January, but the decision to use it for anti-discrimination training in universities and colleges has made it the first state to implement the measure in higher education system.
A Dubai business mogul addressed the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange in a bid to attract Israeli entrepreneurs to the United Arab Emirates. Ahmed bin Suleiman, the CEO of the Dubai Multi-Commodity Center, said Israel is one of his company's target markets. Using a Jewish expression, bin Suleiman said these ties are going from strength to strength as our two countries become more intertwined through new projects and initiatives. There are currently 78 Israeli companies operating in the DMCC, which is the Gulf state's largest free trade zone. Israel's Ministry of Economy reported that in 2021, Israel and UAE reached close to $900 million in commerce, and by the end of October this year, trade had already exceeded $2 billion.
Israel's National Library has received a donation of 7 rare books spanning 400 years of literature. The manuscripts, which included a first and second edition of Shakespeare works from the 1600s, were given to the library anonymously. The collection also included 2 volumes of Samuel Johnson's Dictionary of the English Language, printed in 1755. This is considered to be one of the most important dictionaries of its time. Israel's National Library was established in 1925. It houses several unique world-renowned collections of books, pictures, manuscripts, artifacts, and maps. The National Library released a statement saying that it welcomes the valuable donation, which significantly enriched its collections.
A 3,000-year-old Egyptian seal was recently discovered during an 8th grade field trip in Israel. The class of amateur archaeologists were hiking in Azor, just outside of Tel Aviv, when their tour guide discovered an ancient scarab coin. The find created a lot of excitement within the group of youngsters who were participating in the Israel Antiquities Authority's tour guide course. IAA Director Eli Esquisito called the discovery symbolic and said that it was very meaningful since the students were gaining archaeological knowledge and at the same time they contributed to our archaeological heritage. Dr. Amir Golani, a Bronze Age specialist with the IAA, said it's very possible the seal is from the late Bronze Age, when local Canaanites were ruled by the Egyptian Empire.
The Gulf state of Bahrain hosted Israeli President Isaac Herzog in the first state visit of its kind. Herzog hailed the trip as a message of peace in the region and a historic step in the relationship between Israel and the Arab states that signed the Abraham Accords, brokered by former U.S. President Donald Trump. Herzog said that he hopes more countries will be able to join the circle of peace with Israel. Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the state visit, Bahrain's Foreign Minister Abdul Latif al-Zayani told journalists that he was looking forward to working with incoming Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who he described as a man of peace. The Bahraini diplomat reminded reporters that he and Netanyahu were both signatories and major partners of the Abraham Accords.
Israeli archaeologists have unearthed part of an ancient Roman highway in northern Israel. The 1,800-year-old thoroughfare was built in the time of Emperor Hadrian and was a major route of the ancient world. The 26-foot-wide pathway runs through Akko, Tsipori, and Tiberias. It was paved in the 2nd century and later renovated in the Byzantine era. The Israeli Antiquities Authority said that in addition to uncovering the road, they also discovered a trove of Roman coins, metal items, and pottery.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Ari Abramowitz. He is the co-founder of Arugot Farms. Ari, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Joshua Reinstein.
Well, tell us a little about what is Arugot Farms.
I could try to describe it to you in words. I could, but it would be like showing you a sheet of musical notes versus going to a philharmonic orchestra. It really is. We're the furthest, settlement in the Judean frontier. And I guess I'd say, what is it? I would say, why? Why is the Arugot Farm? And our mission is to restore Judea to being a global destination for spirituality and transcendence, that there's hundreds of thousands of young Jews and Christians searching, seeking a deeper, authentic spiritual experience, and they're going to an ashram in India, whereas the greatest spiritual legacy in the history of the world is in Judea. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to bring all of the nations of the world, Jews from throughout the land of Israel, from around the world, non-Jews from around the world, to experience a transcendent spiritual reality that could only be in a place where the prophets taught the world how to pray.
Well, you grew up in America, you're an ordained rabbi, and you made Aliyah, you came here and you built this amazing, amazing farm in the hills of Judea. It's kind of like a field of dreams. You know, if you build it, they'll come. And now we see thousands of people going out there. What was this experience like?
I feel like, if I'm going to be honest, because people come out, they're like, wow, you're a pioneer. But in my heart, I know that everything that happened there was nisim v'niflot, miracles of God. I did show up with my partners and say, hineni. Like Abraham said, I'm here, use us, we're ready to sacrifice whatever and do whatever. But the way it has all come out, the beauty, the magnificence, we have 4,000 fruit trees and 3 vineyards and ecological pool, the largest in the country. It's like a Garden of Eden, like oasis, and this enchanting, mystical house of prayer. It's just like so special and unique that people that are seekers are coming out to the farm. That's what actually Arugot means. Ka'ayil ta'arog alafi keimayim from Psalms. As a ibex or a deer is thirsting or yearning for water, we yearn for Hashem. So it's a place of yearning and thirsting and seeking. I don't necessarily have all the answers, but it's a good place to come for the questions. And a good question is much more valuable than a bunch of good answers.
Well, I come there all the time. You can't get rid of me and my family. And you have amazing stuff. You have pools and ATVs and horseback riding, but the real beauty is the spiritual side to it. There's something in the air there. There's something special when you go out there that it's different. How do you quantify that feeling?
Well, so it's the wilderness of Ziph. That's where it is biblically. It's where David fled from Saul when Saul was trying to kill him. It's where he set up the first mighty men, the first army of Israel. And so when Saul was trying to kill him, that's where he composed the Psalms, according to the Midrash. Most of the Psalms of Israel were composed in these mountains that we're in. So I used to think that must be why the place is so holy, because King David composed the Psalms there. But the longer I'm there, the longer I really believe in my heart, for reasons I can't explain, that the holiness is like meshurash. It's like rooted in that land from time immemorial. And perhaps David was inspired to compose the Psalms there because of the inherent holiness of the place. So it's one of those things where I can't really describe it in words. I can't do it. It's something that one needs to experience. People always whip out their phones, and I'm just like, you're going to be disappointed. It's not going to translate to pictures, and it's really a place of coming together, of redemption. I've never in my life tasted redemption, because I don't even know what redemption really means. It's a very loaded theological word. Christians think it's this and Jews think it's that, but I've had moments where I'm like, that was redemption. That tasted like redemption.
Something that's amazing is that during Corona, a lot of the country was shut down. People weren't coming, but today, the farm is packed. There are Jews and a lot of Christians who are coming to see the farm. Why are people being drawn out there? What is bringing them? How do they know about it?
About 5 years ago, there was a group of Germans that came out and they wanted to volunteer to help build. And turned out many of them were children and grandchildren of Nazis. And they wanted to, in their own words, repent. And they said that their parents and grandparents brought so much darkness and death, and they want to bring light and life. And they came out and they helped to build our house of prayer. And this past Shabbat, they were there. And it was my mother-in-law's birthday, and so she was there too. And there were other children of Holocaust survivors there with the children of SS officers. And they started speaking over the food we were eating together, and then they all burst out in tears and wept and wept and wept on each other's shoulders. I've never seen anything like it. We didn't set this up to be a Holocaust survivor reconciliation thing. It's just something that is happening. There's like a healing, a global spiritual healing that's happening there. And anyone who's tapped into the live wire of the living God of Israel, or even just any sort of living God, a living thirst for God, they tend to end up at the farm somehow.
Ari, there are literally tens of millions of people watching the show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
What message do I have? The sages of Israel say that the chicken grows as the egg decays. That you look at the world and it seems like nuclear talk of nuclear war and inflation and war and hatred and all of these things, and it looks like things are falling apart, but on the inside, on a deep spiritual level, beautiful things are happening. And the epicenter of that beauty is coming from Judea. King David, his first 7 years of his kingdom was in Judea, and the last 33 was in Jerusalem. What starts in Judea ends in Jerusalem. So keep your eyes focused on Israel, because that's where the illuminating light, the shining light of redemption is going to be shining to the whole world.
Thank you, Ari, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Hello, and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grunberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Today, Ukrainian Jews are in great danger as they live in war-torn Ukraine. Help us fulfill the biblical prophecy by bringing our brothers and sisters back home to safety. God bless you from Jerusalem.
I will even gather you from the peoples and assemble you out of the countries where ye have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. Ezekiel 11:17. In eastern Ukraine, over the past 2.5 years, a brutal and cruel war has been raging. A savage war without clearly defined front lines. Against this backdrop, the Jews of eastern Ukraine have been in peril. The donors of Karen Hayesod from around the world have heeded the call and have come to their rescue. Our supporters realize that the window of opportunity to rescue these Jews may slam shut. Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. Isaiah 49:18.
We are here to support, all of us, the Jewish people who return to their homeland, to support each other.
These Jews must be extracted from burning towns, from raging battles, and from the chaos of eastern Ukraine, and brought back to their ancient homeland.
Я решила приехать в Израиль, потому что я последние полгода почувствовала свои еврейские корни и поняла, что я не могу больше находиться в своей стране, и я должна вернуться на свою историческую родину.
Корни говорят сами о себе, было рвение, плюс хотелось, чтобы сын узнал, вот.
Воссоединение с семьей, наша семья здесь сейчас, папа, мама, сестра.
Большое волнение, но как-то у меня сразу, как мы прилетели, какое-то ощущение было правильности нашего выбора.
Для будущего нашего ребенка в первую очередь.
Karen Ayesod's friends around the world have been stepping forward to enable this life-saving effort to continue. Many thousands have already been rescued, yet many thousands still remain in eastern Ukraine. They must be brought out now. Through Karen Ayesod and our partner, the Jewish Agency, our dreams, our prayers, and our hopes are coming together in fulfillment of the biblical prophecy that foresaw the return of the Jewish people to their ancestral homeland.
Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the uttermost parts of the earth. A great company shall they return hither. Jeremiah 31:7.
The situation is highly unpredictable, and we must not miss this chance to help. We cannot let them down. All possible resources must be mobilized in this effort. You too can play your part in this crucial mission as Karen Ayesod provides these Jews in distress with new lives in Israel. Join us. We must not forsake them in their time of need.
The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Bless Israel by supporting Karen Ayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit khisrael.org.
And now, Shining Light from Israel.
We are continuing on our quest to explore the Holy Land and connect to our biblical heritage. One of the most powerful ways to connect with our forefathers is to walk in their footsteps. And what better way to do that than to walk on the very path that they themselves walked. That's what brings us today to this road, known as Derech HaAvot, or the path of the patriarchs. Come, walk with me. This stone is a real milestone. No, actually, it's a real milestone. The Romans used to put stones like this every mile on roads that were major thoroughfares. This stone connects us to the city of Jerusalem. We have found dozens of stones just like it with inscriptions on it, letting you know how far away you were or how close you were to the city of Jerusalem. This particular stone is 12 Roman miles away from the city of Aelia Capitolina, as Jerusalem was known back in the Roman period, so that a traveler along the way would know just how far he had to go to get to the holy city. Along the path of the patriarchs, archaeologists have found a number of these mile markers, some of them still with the writing on it, chiseled into it 2,000 years ago. The Patriarch's Path was primarily a road that was used by pilgrims to go to Jerusalem on the 3 pilgrimage festivals. Along the way, there were different things on the sides of the road that were set up for the ease and convenience of those pilgrims as they went to the holy city. Here's something that they found along the Patriarch's Path. This is a public ritual bath. and it's one of dozens that they've found along this way. We know that it's a public ritual bath because there's a divider on the staircase. One of the requirements for going to Jerusalem on the pilgrimage festival is that one would show up in a state of ritual purity. One side is for the impure people going down into the water, and the other side is for the purified people coming out. And you wouldn't want to touch an impure person as you're coming out of the ritual bath. We are now inside the ritual bath, carved out of the very limestone of the mountain all around us. Nowadays, it doesn't hold much water because limestone's not very good at holding water. But we can still see some of the waterproofing agent that was used 2,000 years ago to ensure that this ritual bath held enough water to purify all of the pilgrims heading on their way to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. In the first book of Maccabees, chapter 6, we read about the death of Eleazar, younger brother of Judah Maccabee. Apparently, the Jewish rebel forces were giving the Greeks such a hard time that the Greeks violated their treaty with the Roman Empire and brought out battle elephants to put down the Jewish revolt. The Jews saw these battle elephants and were afraid. They thought they were unkillable monsters. Eleazar wanted to show them that they could be killed, and so he ran at the lead elephant and he stabbed it with a very long spear, showing the other Jews that these elephants could be killed in battle. Unfortunately, the elephant fell onto Eleazar, killing him in the process. The Jews redoubled their efforts and fought valiantly, but in the end, the victory went to the Greeks. In the 1960s, modern Jewish pioneers established this town and named it Eleazar, after the valiant sacrifice of the hero who died not far from where we're standing right now. There's a lot more ground left to cover on the path of the patriarchs before the sun sets. I'm going to continue on my path, connecting to my biblical heritage. And as always, I hope you can come and join us.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.